Welcome to this bonus episode of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, and we are celebrating because today is World Milk Day. So first off, thank you to all of our dairy farmers out there who are working so hard every single day to produce nutritious and wholesome milk. And World Milk Day is a celebration of just that. It was actually established in 2001 by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to recognize the importance of milk as a global food. And what better way for us to do that today by joining our friends at the Dairy Discovery, a Michigan-based nonprofit dairy educational effort that has been connecting consumers to their food through an on-farm experience for nearly 20 years. You are going to hear from founder Annie Link at Swisslane Farms in Alto, Michigan, as she shares the story of telling dairy story and how that has grown and evolved into a program today that hosts farm tours, camps, and special events for students and adults. And we are joined by Dairy Discovery's executive director, Renee McCauley, to talk about the hours of impact this nonprofit has created and the vision to amplify these results and how you can be a part of supporting that mission. Plus, find out the fun and tasty way they are celebrating World Milk Day at the Dairy Discovery this year, right here on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This is the podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will uplevel your skill set and your mindset so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. And I'm here to help you do that. So if you want to get these messages, these new episodes dropped right in your inbox, make sure you are heading over to upleveldairy.com and subscribing to the Uplevel Dairy community. So every time a new episode drops, you've got the message right in your inbox. This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adiseo, a global leader in nutritional solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. So let's raise a glass to celebrate World Milk Day and join in this conversation from Annie and Renee at the Dairy Discovery. Annie and Renee, welcome to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. So why don't we take a moment and have each of you just give a quick introduction to who you are and what you do.
Well, like Peggy said, I'm Annie, and I work on my family's dairy farm. We have the three senior partners, my dad and two uncles, and my cousins, Tom, Matt, and I are part of the next generation to lead the charge and continue on the tradition of the family business.
And Renee?
I'm Renee McCauley. I work alongside Annie at Dairy Discovery. My husband and I both are dairy farmers involved in the dairy industry, and we really enjoy taking care of cows. And I love the honor of going to Dairy Discovery where I can share and tell our visitors more about cows and what every dairy farmer does, caring for those cows each day.
So Annie and Renee, you're kind of the tag team that lead the efforts at Dairy Discovery. And so let's just take a moment and have you explain, what is Dairy Discovery?
I sometimes summarize it as Swisslane is our classroom. So Dairy Discovery is independent of Swisslane. Like, we act as our own organization. We are our own organization. So Dairy Discovery has a relationship with Swisslane so that we can go and tour and really treat that dairy farm like our classroom. And as far as our neighbors, and when I say neighbors, that neighborhood is really large when we talk about dairy farming. So our neighbors might be 10 miles away, or our dairy farming neighbors, or they might be 60 miles away or from the other side of the state. And that support we have from other dairy farmers is really important to me and Annie. But it's really important because what we share at the farm is really on behalf of all dairy farmers. And there's a lot of them that recognize that the value of connecting with consumers. So we really appreciate that support that they extend our way because we think it's important, and we are doing our best effort to represent all of dairy farming.
And for many years, we operated as just my little side business, as like a value-added business is what I tried to make it. And what we quickly found out was that it wasn't the monetary was the added value, but it was the social license and the involvement in the community and the support from the community that we, as Swisslane Farms, realized it was just so important. And then realizing just the dairy industry in general just needed a connection to our consumers. And so as the years went by, we're like, well, this needs to grow, needs to get bigger. And in 2017, we decided we needed to take Dairy Discovery to the next level. And so I wrote out a whole business plan and quickly realized that if we kept it as a for-profit business, that I was going to have to charge way too much, and that was not going to be able to serve as broad of a customer base, and then just have it be for everybody. And it was going to eliminate some of that. It was going to be like $20 admission is what I was looking at. And so we had already gotten some really long-time supporters from some of our vendors and other industry groups. I'll just throw out a couple, like Caledonia Farmers Elevator, Greenmark Equipment, Zoetis. It's just said, okay, if those guys are willing to support us, let's see if there's anybody else who would be willing. So took that leap of faith and invested in the 501c3 and got that in the end of 2017. So it started our first fundraising in the middle of 2018. And so that's kind of how that all progressed.
So today, Dairy Discovery stands as its own nonprofit entity that's able to provide an experience that is in alignment with that mission, and that's to connect people to where their food comes from. And Annie, as you have shared the story about how it was something that, that was your value-added business and what I would call a passion project, from what it sounds like, something that really was a vision that you put into action to serve people in your community in a bigger and higher impact way. And when we talk about community, there's that proximity that you have to a major city, and being able to bring in people from that part of your community and extend the invitation for them to see and feel and touch and experience a real life working farm. And so for you, Annie, when you think back to the original vision for what Dairy Discovery was, those initial ideas that stirred in your mind and in your heart, is there like a defining moment or a series of events that really just gave you that little spark that became this ignited fire of now what Dairy Discovery is today? Take me back a few years.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you way back, because I go back like to my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and then most impactful was like my mom hosting our end-of-the-year field trips at our farm. She'd haul the tractor and the big hay wagon over to the elementary school and drive them down the road 5 miles to our farm, and we'd have just a great end-of-the-year picnic with our class. And so we always were used to doing that and hosting. And then as I got older and had kids of my own, I took them out to, it was called Clackles. It was like pumpkin patch or apple orchard. And I was just amazed that there were hundreds of people there investing their time, their money, their energy, and they were just so excited to be out on a farm. And like, well, we do that. I didn't know that people needed that. As our farm grew, we doubled in size from 2000, 2001, and then in 2006, we were still going through this whole transition of growth and stuff, and just having some comments from our neighbors made about what are they spraying through those irrigators, and just all of a sudden realizing like even the people around the corner were starting to ask like what's going on at that place, and them just not knowing, kind of, it was shocking to me, like, well, come on over and see, and just wanted to bring that back and bring the trust and the transparency back into the farm. And so Matt, my cousin, like I had mentioned before, he had just gotten out of ag business school at Michigan State, and he really encouraged me, and I was like his like little pet project, like, here, let's create a business plan. And so we did all that together, and then he got married and took off, and so left me with the plan to execute, and just was there cheering me on the whole time. And then as I started doing the tours, I realized how little I knew about how little people knew, and just really trying to figure out the key messaging that I needed to add into the tours, and really trying to tweak the way that I gave examples and tried to bridge that gap for the consumers was a pretty big learning curve for me. And then just finding a way to make it a safe and very streamlined process so that it wouldn't upset our dairy operation too. So just really, really grew and tried to learn all that. And then if you just think about Also, one of the factors I forgot to mention in there was just how we're using more and more technology on the farm. And instead of people being like excited and thinking about all the advancements and the efficiency and the sustainability factor of that, they were taught through social media to fear the technology. And I thought, what greater way than transparency and bringing people out and trying to connect them and make a personal connection than to combat that fear. So didn't want people being afraid of their food. Like, we do this every day. We got you. Just you go ahead and eat and we'll take care of the rest. Is kind of what I was hoping people would get out of the dairy discovery experience.
So you took this idea, put it into a business plan, and put it into action. And how neat is it that really the heart of where dairy discovery comes from, it goes back to what you watched your own mom do. Pick up a load full of kids and take them on a hay wagon ride to the farm so that they could have that firsthand connection. And you modernized that effort to fit today's world and to meet today's kids and today's adults as well, today's consumer, where they're at, and to give them a modern dairy experience. So those first few years of dairy discovery, what did a farm tour look like?
I just remember our first little flyer was like a little clip art image with my literal like landline phone number on it. And I was charging $2 a person for the tours. So I was going to make boatloads of money. This little value added business, but just right into the parlor and me just like squirting the milk out for the kids and then like, they'd never seen how big a cow was before, and then let alone actually get to see the milk coming out of the cow, and then just watching and talking about the quality and sanitization measures that we go through. So that's in the parlor, and at the end we're like clapping and cheering for our milking technicians and just how they provide us with really high quality milk, and then going into the freestall barn and having the kids like find a corn leaf or a corn kernel or a piece of hay and trying to offer that to the cows at the feed bunk, and then going into the calf barn, offering a little bottle of warm water to a calf, and then hopping on the hayride and going and visiting the feed pad, and then even doing a little drive-by of the manure pits, and just being able to talk through all of the full circle that happens on a dairy farm. And then, of course, ending it with the milk and string cheese.
The best way to end any farm tour, right? Is there a quick example you can share of something that you have learned how to say and incorporate into your messaging that just really seems to resonate and connect with visitors?
Probably when we're in the milking parlor, there's a lot of times where folks, this is the first time they've ever seen cows actually be milked. And like Annie mentioned, actually seeing the milk come from the udder is really important, because we can talk about it and we can talk about the milk being stored in the udder, but we don't ever see it, which is true. So actually, when we squirt that milk from the udder is a really strong connection, because the kids physically see it themselves, how the milk comes directly from the cow in that part of their body.
That's one of those things that you found is just very compelling. Like, that's a compelling experience that a visitor takes with them and really enforces your mission to create that connection between where food comes from. And not just that milk comes from a cow, but exactly where it comes from, and to see it for themselves. So this is the modern way of doing what Annie's mom did. Right? When she squirted out milk and the kids all thought it was awesome, right?
Yes.
So almost 2 decades that you have been actively bringing people out to the dairy and creating this experience for them. How do you quantify the impact, and what does that look like?
We are always evaluating our impact and really try to quantify that. And so in the past, we've always looked at how many on-farm visitors we've had, and then just did like a straight like people count. And then also looked at like community events that we've attended or participated in. So had like 2 different kind of numbers that we were tracking. And this past spring, we have sat down, and I really am excited about what we've come up with to evaluate our impact now. And it's going to be the on-farm hours. Sometimes you'll have kids come out for a camp or a field trip or just a visitor. And that's what we're ultimately looking for. Instead of just like a number, sometimes it can not be quite as meaningful if you're not putting the right measurable behind that. So we had 12,000 on-farm hours in 2023. So we're really excited to see what's next. We have big goals, Peggy.
Well, let's hear more about those big goals. But before we do that, let's celebrate that for a moment of 12,000 visitor on-farm hours. That's 12,000 hours of impact, of messaging, of experience, and of something that is the ability for what you do every day to be communicated in a powerful way for people to take with them as they leave the dairy and go on to whatever path they choose in life and whatever they choose when they go to the grocery store too. So congratulations to Dairy Discovery on that incredible impact. And as you said, you have some big goals. So let's look into the future and say, Annie and Renee, 5 years from now, what is Dairy Discovery? What does it look like? And what's the impact you see then?
And so part of us really spending some time to benchmark our impact and where we're at right now is so we can chart this course of where we're going in the future and how we can kind of standardize that. And that's why we really went to this hour part, because we know the impact is when they're at the farm. And we really pride ourselves in that's our niche. That's where we know we're making some connection. That connection only happens when they're there at the farm, and we can really strengthen their connection to food. So we had to get the benchmark. So now that we are on that path, we want to see growth in the amount of impact we can have. And that comes with growing the amount of time we have visitors at the farm. So we're looking to grow that in 5 years and hopefully double the amount of visitor hours by 10 years from now.
A big dream, a big goal. And would you say that, as you say that out loud, as you express that goal in words, and I have a gut feeling it's in writing somewhere around there too, knowing how Swisslane operates, but is that the goal that just stirs you and that gets you excited and keeps you motivated to continue on to operate Dairy Discovery and to put effort and time and energy and resources into this passion project that is now a business and a non-for-profit as well?
Oh, the goal that inspires is to make a difference. And if that making a difference means that we need to talk to that many more people, that much more, that we want to make sure we make that difference on behalf of all of our peers. We know it's not just Annie and I, that it's a whole entire industry that we're trying to make that personal connection to the food that we all produce. But probably another factor that drives us is that Annie and I are both getting old. I'm getting much older than she is. And we do need to concentrate on inspiring that next generation and not just like we mentioned earlier about being advocates in themselves, but we also realize that we need to put that call out to folks to continue in the industry as well and appeal to that next generation of dairy industry career.
Annie, how about you?
So for me, I just love that it doesn't have to just be about Swisslane Farms or anything like that. That's just what that really audacious goal does, is drive us to think even bigger than ourselves, right? And bring more people in and find more partnerships. And that is what drives me, because I think we can do so much more with finding those strong partnerships to join us in the adventure. It's just, we can't do it on our own, nor do we even want to. And that's probably the biggest thing, and one of the reasons why I am so excited to have Renee. Like, I don't like to do stuff by myself. I'm very much an I and the disc profile. I love working with a team. And so that's what motivates me, just finding other people to come alongside of us. And so whether it be other farms or us finding other communities, that's what I'm really excited about, and knowing like the impact that it's had here, and we can replicate that and do that in a whole nother community is really exciting.
And that's part of that bigger impact goal, is that in order to reach the goals and the numbers that you set out for Dairy Discovery, it's going to take doing more or doing things differently than what you're currently doing right now. And so how do you hope to see that growth happen?
One of the avenues that we're going down is we got to increase when we can interact with our visitors. And that's one of the obstacles that we face, especially in Michigan. Weather's always a part of that calendar of when we can and can't best host people on a farm. So we're trying to create some opportunity where we can extend that season. So if we can just do that, that increases our opportunity. But we also realize there's a older market too. We want to try to reach out and entice a program to middle school, high school type groups too. So that's one area. But in addition to just our own goal of on-farm hours, as we're developing, like I said, the program Annie started in 2006, a lot of it is still consistent. And we're realizing what really registers and connects. And we want to get to this point where we're an on-farm source for folks that might be considering or have their own direct connection to whether it's a community group or a school in a classroom. And we want to make sure that we're their cheerleader as well, in that we have this recipe card for what happens when we have a group come to the farm. Let us share that with you so that when you have the opportunity to invite a group to your farm, that your answer is yes. We don't want you to say no. You have an opportunity to make a connection, and we want to be your cheerleader and share with you what we're working on and developing and have tested.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Renee talked about is we want people to say yes. And I think a really big part of that is just being able to come alongside somebody and walk right with them and have all the resources available. It's just going to make it so much more simple, streamlined. And then what I really am passionate about is just the dairy industry coming together with a united voice, and just having the same thing that they hear from the farmer is the same thing that they're seeing on the ads on their TikTok, to the radio, to like all of that can just be consistent. And I think when you get faced with a pretty tough question or whatever, it's easy to shy away from that, but having resources and being prepared. So that's kind of why we would like to just really have that as a very easy go-to for people who are doing the tours.
So your bigger vision, in order to have the impact that you believe is possible for this program, is to be able to empower others and to be able to scale the impact by replicating almost a toolkit, so to speak, for other dairies that are willing to do the same thing that you're doing. And that's open up your doors for a fully transparent experience, but in such a way that the messaging is consistent among these sites.
Yes, exactly.
I think what you just hit on here is it's the information piece, right? It's the knowledge piece. But what you and Annie both also touched on was being able to create an experience and a feeling. And so what's that saying that people don't always remember exactly what you say, but the memory they take with them is how you made them feel. And so they will create those pictures in their mind that combine what you shared about the cows with what you've intentionally created as an experience. And so when someone leaves the farm from Dairy Discovery and gets back on the bus, whether it's a little kiddo and their mom or dad getting back on the bus, what's the feeling that you hope they leave with at the end of the day?
For me, I just want them to feel grateful. I want them to feel just so thankful for the food that's on the plate, and just be amazed and inspired by this miraculous, nutritious, delicious nutrient that these animals produce for us every single day. And I like to tell the kids, like, this is a miracle that happens inside the cow. This creature takes things that we can't eat and turns it into something that we can. And it's just so amazing. And then not only that, but then we can take their manure and use it as fertilizer. And then the gases from their manure are creating renewable natural gas, and like on and on. Like it's just endless what these animals can do for us and how they just provide for us. So I think just being grateful the food that's on their plate, that's what I want them to feel.
And with the passion that both of you have as leaders in front of these tour groups and behind the scenes, there's no way that they can't leave without those feelings of gratitude and pure amazement for cows, for dairy producers, and for milk. And speaking of milk, World Milk Day is a big day at Swisslane Farms and at Dairy Discovery, right? World Milk Day, June 1st. Tell us how you are celebrating World Milk Day 2024.
Yeah, so World Milk Day 2024, our plan is to do a cereal bar and have that be open to the entire community. So we offer cereal, and like Renee said, cereal's best friend is milk. And so what a better vehicle to get milk into everybody's bellies than with the cereal bar. So, and it's all you can eat. So we'll have Cocoa Pebbles all the way to, I don't know, Fruit Loops and whatever. Renee just goes and dumps all the cereal boxes in there. So we'll be able to not only provide the milk and the cereal, but also a little bit of experience around the farm and have just some interactive stuff for families and things like that too. So just any way to celebrate milk is what we're going to be looking for. And so this year it's June 1st from 9 to 1, right at Swisslane Farms and the Alto location. And so we've been celebrating World Milk Day, trying to do something unique or something fun and just really celebratory over the last several years. So the cereal bar has been a hit. So this will be our third year doing and offering that to the community. The last several years it's been at night, but with the Saturday we decided to do a breakfast bar.
How fun. So World Milk Day is going to be a cereal bar full of milk and cereal and spoons and lots of happy kids and probably some happy adults too that are reliving their childhood favorite cereals alongside some milk. You've shared an incredible story and an incredible impact for what Dairy Discovery has already done, but also laid the foundation for what the future looks like. And for those out there that are listening and believe in the mission, believe in what Dairy Discovery is doing, and want to be a part of supporting it, what's the best way for them to get involved?
There's a lot of ways to be involved. But one thing about Dairy Discovery is we love what we do and we love to share that message. But in order for us to do that, we're always looking for ways to have a sustainable funding, because we realize that there's costs associated, but we want to share the story and we need to find the funding.
You have a major fundraiser every year for Dairy Discovery. And in fact, I have heard about this thing. I've heard it's a heck of a good time. And it's a live auction, right?
Well, we have a live and silent auction. So there's a lot of opportunities for items, and we're trying to really appeal to the dairy farmer or even just rural community and anyone who's just excited to spend a day on the farm. I've talked with my husband and into donating a charter fishing trip. We'll have, a couple years ago, got a balloon ride donated. We've had, Renee, what are some of the other exciting items?
It's always a surprise from year to year what really takes off with our audience, but it's amazing to see the community. And in this reference, that community is far and large. It's not just the immediate community is super supportive, but that we have lots of support from really the tri-state area to the auction. And it's really neat to see how broad that is. But like one year, the hog roast that one of our neighbors donated was a huge hit. And so it's some of these unique experiences that some of our peers or our partners that can offer, that it really appealed to the audience.
So exciting things on the docket. And these are the ways that people can support Dairy Discovery, what you're doing, and have some fun at the same time.
Yes, we make sure you have lots of fun if you come to our auction. So it's October 15th.
October 15th is the date for this year's in-person live auction and also silent auction for Dairy Discovery fundraiser, where people that are in the dairy industry that want to support this mission and who believe in what you are doing can show up and do so and have a heck of a good time while they do it.
One of the avenues we do is we do have an on-farm store. All the proceeds generated from the store go directly back to Dairy Discovery and just help offset some of the costs associated with our programming efforts throughout the year. So the store is also an opportunity for us to have those direct connections with consumers. So we sell beef, cheese, and milk at the store, and honey, and family also makes maple syrup. And a special little note, the cheese we actually sell is mostly Wisconsin cheese. So we're always looking for good partners with cheese, because people come to the farm store wanting to buy food. And as part of our messaging is that we don't make cheese, but we know cheese is good and tasty, and we've learned a lot about cheese, and so we want to sell you cheese. So we look forward to that conversation and helping consumers realize that they have choices and they understand choices and are smart consumers.
So there's opportunity for places that are outside of Michigan to be able to ship some cheese over. And what better place than Wisconsin? I will vouch for it as a resident and a probably top 10% cheese consumer, meaning I just eat way too much cheese. But why not? Why not support something like Dairy Discovery through an opportunity like that to donate and to have those proceeds go directly toward the mission? Dairy Discovery, hosted at Swisslane Farms. And Annie and Renee, thank you so much for jumping in and joining me today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. We'll all be raising our own glasses of milk in our respective areas to celebrate World Milk Day. And also thank you for sharing the story of what you're doing with Dairy Discovery to be able to live out that mission of creating that connection between consumers and their food and doing it right in your own backyard and the classroom of Swisslane Farms through Dairy Discovery. And I'll make sure I include links in our show notes so that our listeners out there can follow you along and watch what you are doing and maybe be inspired just as you were to be able to take it upon themselves to create these dairy experiences for people in their communities as well. This Uplevel Dairy Podcast is brought to you by founding partner Adiseo, a global leader in animal nutrition and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to capture more value from components and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. And Adiseo has been generous to give the Dairy Discovery a $1,000 to support the mission of connecting consumers to their food on World Milk Day. And joining us from the Adiseo team is Dylan Broxhus. Dylan, tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm Dylan Broxhus, be the Midwest Dairy Business Manager for Adiseo, based out of Northwest Iowa, covering all of Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska. And I've been at Adiseo just shy of 5 years. I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Northwest Iowa. The family's still milking cows today, so it's always fun to go back home and help them on the farm, whether it's with corn silage or hauling manure or different tasks, as long as it is staying out of the parlor and staying out of the professionals doing their job.
So you're not afraid to jump in and get your hands dirty once in a while back at the home dairy farm?
Most definitely am not.
Dylan, you are joining us today to celebrate World Milk Day and also efforts from your company Adiseo to support efforts and bring awareness to milk and the nutritional value of that, as well as to celebrate the farmers who produce it. Why is it important to you and Adiseo to celebrate and support World Milk Day?
Well, as I just had mentioned, being someone who grew up on a dairy farm and in that dairy community, I see every day how dedicated those individuals are to producing a high quality, wholesome product that is very beneficial for every person to consume. Here at Adiseo, we provide supplements to those animals to help provide a high plane of nutrition to optimize their production and their performance to provide a very high quality, wholesome product that you and me can consume at the end of the day, whether it be in milk, cheese, or butter.
So Dylan, June 1st is World Milk Day. How are you planning to celebrate this year?
Yeah, this year I'm definitely going to pour myself a tall glass of just plain white milk, maybe dunk some cookies in it and enjoy myself a nice cold glass of milk.
All right, what's the milk of choice? 1%, 2%, Fairlife, whole milk, bulk tank?
Whole milk if I can get it here, or I was born and raised on the dairy farm, so straight from the bulk tank is the way that I prefer it.
Awesome. Well, Dylan, thank you for joining us to share not only how you are planning to personally celebrate World Milk Day, but also for the support of celebrating the dairy farmers who produce this nutritional product, really nature's most perfect health food all around the world, and also the messaging behind that. So thank you to Adiseo, and thank you, Dylan, for joining us to show your support for World Milk Day.
Thank you, Peggy.
I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thank you for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast.